Hey, I got a question for you. Do you believe in zombies? I mean, if you do, you really need some electroshock therapy, but hey, maybe you can just become a philosopher. Because that's the kind of thing that we're going to get into today, and yeah, that's really kind of stupid if you ask me. But we're not strangers to stupidity around here, are we? Therefore, into the fray we go. Today, we're going to finish up the last of the What's Your Philosophy quiz. And I wish I could say that we've saved the best for last, but nope, we haven't. Because today, we're going to have some problems, and I'll talk about that at the very end. This is where I really start to think that philosophers just like to hear themselves talk, but they really don't have a whole lot of substance to say. In that, it starts to sound a whole lot like religion, doesn't it? So, anyway, let's just get to it. Therefore, next up on the agenda, we're off to Newcomb's problem. This is where I'm really going to start balking. Theoretical questions like this don't actually mean anything. Well, imagine you're a kumquat. Yeah, screw you. This, like a lot of philosophical questions, is meant to shoehorn you into a binary position and, no, I'm not going to play along. Imagine you're on a futuristic game show. What do? Well, I quit and walk out. I don't play. This is making all kinds of stupid assertions that, honestly, I can't even take seriously enough to bother to consider. Imagine that there's magic. Yeah, pass. Therefore, I'm just going to arbitrarily pick one because I just don't care. I'll go with the second one in this case because I think last time in the last episode, I went for the first, and we're just going to move on. Now, I'm only going to show this because A, you're here and you want to see it, and B, it displays the problems with this kind of quiz. The majority of philosophers don't hold to either view. And I started out in the very first video pointing this kind of stuff out. But you can't get there from this quiz. If you go down to the user responses, other is 0 because it just can't be chosen. Well, then what the hell is the point of having an other? If they can't figure out a way not to railroad the people who are taking the quiz, then it should never have been included in the first place. So this is just stupid, and it shows the problem with all of these quizzes. But we're just going to move on. Next, we get to normative ethics, and this isn't going to go well either if I'm reading this right. Normative ethics explores how one ought to act. Unlike metaethics or moral judgment, normative ethics looks into what makes an action right based on asking what everyone should do in that circumstance. Except, I don't really think that there is an ought that we can universally apply. Any given situation is going to have a lot of possible answers and potential nuance that makes trying to impose a single answer absurd from the start. What makes an action right? Because I don't think right and wrong are even a thing that can be objectively evaluated. Morality is 100% subjective in every single situation. What might be right for me to do in a particular situation might be completely wrong for you based on your experiences, your goals, the culture that you live in, etc., etc., etc. I'm going to pick causing good effects because that's something that I've chosen subjectively. But what is a good effect? How do you define good in this context? Because that's another completely subjective thing to do. And that doesn't make this the right answer because there is no right answer. Someone else might choose a different goal. And that just makes this whole thing a complete mess. Now, that makes me a consequentialist according to the study. But you notice how low all of the options are, right? There is no agreement on any of this, period. We can go down to the explanation though, and I'll rip that one apart too. You think that the rightness or wrongness of an act is a matter of what effects that action has. Right actions cause good outcomes, and wrong actions cause bad outcomes. When evaluating the goodness or badness of an event, it doesn't matter what the intentions of the actors were. The problem is, I don't think we can get universal agreement on what effects any action causes or what goals we should have. Even if we do pick a goal subjectively, like well-being, you're not going to get everybody to agree on how we should get there or even what that goal means. This is desperately trying to get to an objective moral end in a world that is inherently subjective. Like I said, this is just a complete mess. It's just not going to get us anywhere. Off to politics. This isn't a question that will cover your political view based on modern political issues and opinions today, but rather the political philosophy of how you think society should be. Well, here's my answer. Who cares? Preferable to who? And why do you think that person matters? What difference does my opinion make at all? And that's really what needs to be asked for most of these questions. How do we get to objective truth, and how pointless are most of these questions? So, what kind of society do I think would be most preferable? What difference does it make? Slave owners in the antebellum South thought that slavery was great, because for them, having free labor in the fields and thinking that their silly religion was true and having somebody to feel superior to, that was a great thing for them to consider. And the same goes for the Nazis. The German people were downtrodden following the end of World War I, and they really needed someone to feel like they were superior to. Welcome to the Holocaust. This is something that can't even be considered without context, and context is the furthest thing in any of these questions. Just because I can look at the context with which I am most familiar and make a choice that seems subjectively correct to me, that doesn't mean a thing to somebody who lives in an entirely different world. Therefore, what's the point of answering this question at all? Therefore, the second one, I guess, seems to be the best, so I'm just going to go with it arbitrarily. But that doesn't mean that it's a one-size-fits-all answer. So we move on to the explanation, and of course, this is the very basis of egalitarianism. But you notice that, again, the majority of philosophers went with another view. You can get to all of those positions by just pursuing egalitarianism, which makes the others rather pointless in my opinion. You think that fundamentally people are equal in very important ways, and recognition of this fact would give us pause when confronted with systems that distribute benefits and burdens in an unequal way, unless those unequal distributions have very good justification. So, for example, if a system awards significantly more wealth to some than others, you may be likely to question this system. But that's not really true though, is it? It doesn't matter if everyone is equal, so long as they are treated equal, so that the best can rise to the top, and the worst can, do something else. People need to be able to perform to their level of competence, not because they just happen to be there. It's equality of opportunity, not equality of outcome, that's important. And there's an awful lot of political systems out there that can't get that through their stupid little heads. What is the purpose of science? The philosophy of science looks into the foundations, methods, and implications of science, and there is plenty of debate on whether science can reveal the truth about inobservable things. The purpose of science is to learn stuff about the real world. It's not that hard. It's to separate what we wish was true from what is actually true. Because here's the thing. I don't know that there are any unobservable things. There are certainly things that we haven't observed yet. There are things that we can't observe because we haven't developed the methods to observe them, but that doesn't mean that they are inherently impossible to see or study or whatever. We continually learn more and more and more about the world, but I don't think that there's anything out there that can never, ever be observed, never be discovered, never be found or proven or whatever. Science is the only consistently reliable tool that we have ever seen to date, to the eternal disappointment of the overly emotional and gullible and religious. So the question becomes, what's more accurate about science? And here I have to quibble again. I don't think that there is any ultimate truth of reality. Reality just is what it is. That's it. Are we ever going to know everything that there is to know about reality? That's highly unlikely. That's just life. We are inherently limited human beings. That's the way it goes. Every time that we answer a question, we find more questions that we have to ask. We are incrementally getting better, but will we ever know it all? I don't think so. And I figure this is another place where I'm going to wind up firmly in the other camp. But for the moment, I'll just pick the first one. Well, at least I got shanghaied into good company. I still don't think that we're ever going to know it all. I think that's an irrational goal. We are an inherently limited species, and sooner or later, we're going to go extinct, just like everything else. Welcome to the real world. At least the explanation might help a little. You think scientific theories approximately tell us how the world really is. You probably believe that most well-supported scientific theories are at least approximately true. Sure, I guess. I don't know that there is any capital T truth here, but our observations and ideas keep getting a little closer to the way reality seems to be every time we make observations. Moreover, you think that the theoretical elements of our best science refer to real things in the world. So, for example, even though we cannot directly observe electrons, you believe they exist because our best scientific theories tell us that they do. Except we can. I mean, we might not be able to do it with our own physical eyes, but we can construct machines where we absolutely can, quote unquote, see them. There's a lot of things that my body can't detect that we know are actually true about the universe. Being blind doesn't make the world go away. So a lot of this is really just dumb. Okay, this one was so completely unimpressive that I didn't even bother to take a screenshot, and unfortunately the way this whole thing works is you can't go back to look at it again, so take that as you will. It's about whether a Star Trek transporter kills you and then just recreates you elsewhere. Who cares? This is another one of those purely hypothetical questions, and I'm sorry, but I really don't want to answer hypothetical questions. Now, there is an answer, and I will get to that in a second, but this is just noodling your navel level of Star Wars versus Star Trek nonsense. It's philosophical masturbation, and I see no reason to take part. So, in this, I'm going to go with the first one, mostly just because, but I'm going to explain why I actually understand the question down below. So, let's go see. Philosophers are interested in discussing what truth is a property of and what you mean when you say something is true. One of the first questions they explore is, what is truth? Well, as far as I'm concerned, truth is getting as close to reality as you possibly can. Truth, as I said before, is justified true belief. You can't get anywhere close to truth without some kind of corroboratory evidence. Therefore, while the first one gets a nod, I'm fine with it, but let's explain this a little bit. Because here's the reality. The complaints that a lot of people have with the whole transporter thing is, well, your body is destroyed and then it's recreated over there. And even though it looks exactly identical to the one you had with all the same memories, etc., well, it's all new atoms, so it can't be you. Except in reality, your body replaces atoms all the time. What you were like when you were born is nothing like you are like when you die. Your body has completely replaced every single atom that you've got with new atoms. So does that mean that you have died multiple times during your life by just being alive? Because that's what makes this question stupid. Because it's people who don't understand how reality works. All right, I'm getting too worked up over this stupid question. So let's keep going. Correspondence truth. What works for me? You think truth is a relationship between reality and a representation of it. Truth is not identical with reality itself, according to this view. Rather, truth exists within sentences, brain states, and other representations of reality considered accurate. For those who agree with the correspondence theory, truth is a connection with the world that reality exists out there, independent of our ability to know or think about it. Yeah, I don't really agree with that. It really feels like the author is trying to downplay this view, and I don't buy it. Of course, I completely reject anyone's reliance on emotion, which I think is what's going on here, but whatever. Let's just keep going on. There has to be an end to it somewhere, I hope. Yeah, hard pass on the fantasy nonsense. I'm not even going to read it. This is just stupid. Zombies aren't real. What's the point of even addressing this? What's next? You're somebody who believes that unicorns might exist. Are you really that stupid? This is the kind of thing that I mean when I say that noodling your navel without context gets you absolutely nowhere. Anybody who thinks that there are, or even could be, Romero-style zombies running around out there someplace, you need to get your head examined. And this is really the kind of thing about philosophy that just makes me roll my eyes. Because this is just a waste of time. It really is. It gets you nowhere remotely close to reality. And reality ought to be the goal here. Unfortunately for a lot of people, it's not, but it should be. That's why we do science. Because science, we hope, incrementally gets us a little bit closer to the way things are actually working every time we use it. And then we get a little closer and a little closer and a little closer until we've got a reasonable understanding of the way things probably work. Could we be wrong? Sure. But we've got to go with what we've got, and we can't just say, well, if we're not absolutely perfect all the time, well, we shouldn't even try, because that's stupid. So this whole thing is just, I don't know. You tell me. The comments are open. Go ahead. Well, that was it. It wants me to give an email address to get the results, but yeah, no thanks. I'm not going to give any help to the spammers, so I guess we don't get to find out anything about my psychological traits. I don't need to be on anybody else's mailing list. I'm already on enough. Actually, I did figure out if you hit submit and don't put an address in there, it does give you some information, and I might cover that in another video because, yeah, this whole thing is getting way too long already, and I'm not in the mood at the moment. So anyway, what do you think? Did you disagree with any of my answers? Let me know in the comments. I do have to point out the absurdity of some of these questions, though, because what's the point of even asking about zombies and other nonsensical things that have absolutely zero meaning in the real world? It's like seriously debating the Force or how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. If you want to do that as a fanboy, maybe, I guess, I don't know. If you got the time to waste, go ahead. But if you're doing it as an academic and being serious about it, don't. Stop being an idiot. You're just embarrassing yourself. Anyway, I'm going to go take a rest because I'm really sick of talking. I'd love to have some in depth, rational discussions with people when I come back, but that usually doesn't work out so well with people who would ask if there were zombies. Anyway, the comments are open. Let me know what you think, and I will see you next time.